10 years before the Hillside Stranglers began their spree in LA, another killer was on the loose in Michigan. Known as the Co-Ed Killer, he brutally murdered 7 young women, including one who was just 13 years old. On the 17th of August 1967, 19-year-old university student Mary Flazar had been missing for 4 weeks. Police were then called to a remote farmhouse at the edge of a field. There they made a sickening discovery. The body of Mary Flazar had been stabbed 30 times in what appeared to have been a frenzied attack. The university community was stunned. Shocked students wondered who could have committed such a terrible crime. Almost a year later, the body of another student was found on a construction site. 20-year-old Joan Schell had been raped and stabbed 47 times. Even though a year separated them, police thought the 2 murders might be connected. Joan Schell had last been seen alive walking with a fellow student, John Norman Collins. Collins was questioned immediately and said he was in Detroit at the time of her disappearance. With insufficient evidence against him, the police had no choice but to let him go. 8 months later, in March 1969, the body of yet another student, 23-year-old Jane Mixer, was found outside a cemetery. She'd been shot and strangled, but not sexually assaulted. Four days later, workmen discovered the body of 16-year-old Marilyn Skelton, close to where the body of Joan Schell had been found the year before. On the 16th of April, the youngest victim was discovered. 13-year-old Dawn Basom had been raped and strangled in a savage attack. Between then and the 25th of July 1969, 3 more young women were brutally killed. It wasn't until the last victim, 18-year-old Karen Sue Beineman, the police felt they'd finally discovered a lead. Karen's friends said they'd seen her with Collins, a fellow student none of them liked or trusted. Collins was brought back in by the police, but once again released for lack of evidence. The much-needed breakthrough came when bloodstains were found in the basement of a house belonging to a relative of Collins, a house Collins had been using. The blood was the same type as Karen Beineman's. Police also found hair samples that matched hair found in the murdered girl's underwear. This time, Collins could not escape. But police could only charge him with the murder of Karen Beineman, even though they were convinced he'd killed 6 other girls. John Norman Collins, the clean-cut all-American boy, was in fact a sadistic killer. Obsessed with sex and bondage, he'd fantasized about torturing women since he was a boy. His trial began in June 1970. On the 19th of August, he was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison with hard labor. Throughout history, there have always been those who kill to satisfy the thrill it gives them. Collins, the Hillside Stranglers, and Neville Heath were no exception. All were brutal killers, devoid of conscience and pity for those unfortunate enough to fall into their hands.